who's got like landmarks. I mean, this one is probably has the most stuff on the actual site. But
right, because there's so much stuff. I mean, it's hard to ignore some of these things.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like when you see, because the thing is too, it might be distracting if you don't mention a
Right.
big ass boathouse.
Because you're like, what's going
You're like,
on?
what is this spot? You know, like, so I felt like I had to build certain things into the story because they were just so in your face that it wouldn't make sense that you, just ignore that boathouse
Right.
to the right. You know, and pretend that you're at the airport. You know, it's like.
Ari's has goes over a highway overpass, has a bunch of bridges. Erin's has a bunch of bridges that she uses.
Oh, that's cool.
Let's see. Yeah, Ari's ends with a fight with Aztec gods on a highway overpass.
Really?
It's
Well, so with that, like, how do they visualize that? Like, the fight, like, is it full on audio? Like they're just listening to an imaginary fight happen.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, and so this is the thing
and that begs a lot of the user.
It does. And so Mike and I are trying to figure, we actually did a test earlier, this is where I was before, we did a little soundstage test where we were just trying to, Erin's has some insane, she's her whole thing is an anxiety dream. And so she's fighting a land monster and then a water monster. And so it's intense. And so we were trying to do some tests to just figure out well, how can we create this in a way that evokes what the story is talking about, but I think a lot of it I'm trying to push on the dialogue so that it's I can get an actor who has who we put a crazy voice effect on and can talk about stuff, but just action without words I think will get old. So we're trying to see...
Right, because it's going to be a lot of pressure.
Because you can imagine if you just hear punch, pow, bang,
right. And that's honestly what I was staying away from. I was trying to make the action about the past.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think I could build much, and the dialogue and the conversation, because I didn't know how willing people would be to imagine with me what I'm pretending to see.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, and I do think this one's different in part because there is so much content. Ari's trail is very, not boring, but it's very the same the whole way.
The whole way.
And so it's much more about the conversation between, his is this whole conversation where the main character has just died and is walking with the god of death to go to the afterlife. And so it's much more about sort of the character meditating on their life than it is about what they're seeing, because what they're seeing, I mean, there are some actually, that's not true. Ari does take the user to a couple, there's a special tree, there's a pond.
So they do have
so they are referencing what you see when it stands out.
But now look, this is the longest, I could have room to do a lot with the audio, with the mixtape track and the just general story track around Liloquit kind of replaying what Supernova has told her.
Yeah.
Because, and I think I hang her right here, right?
I think this takes you up to the meta.
Right. So yeah, because this is the longest route. And so I thought after this was the Apple Press, but you're saying no.
I'm pretty sure we're going to hit the swing first.
Oh. So then the Apple Press is after... But that's cool because I could switch it around to where that's where maybe Aiko tells her to go, where she, maybe he's the one that gives her the directive to, release whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of coming from Supernova, she kind of just sends her off to find him, and then he gives her the next kind of task, which is to go to the Apple Press.
Yeah.
So that's an easy switcheroo.
Cool. Ooh. Oh man. Yay.
Someone's like, let me put the log
No.
down.
No.
You got it.
I am not the balance queen.
So much rain and stuff.
Oh my god, it's been nuts.
Oh yeah, oh shit, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty great. If I mean, in
So
some
then
ways
it
it'll
has to
be,
come back out, and so then yeah, because it's once you hit the boardwalk.
yeah,
Yep. So that's fine. That's cool. So maybe this is the meeting place where she meets him. So that's cool.
yeah,
So she can come straight here, and then and with this, like I was saying that, I feel like she will be listening or like jotting down, like using her recorder. But I imagine she has headphones in, right? And just like if someone were to
Distance 1 mile.
like startle
Duration
you, and you get your
27
headphones
minutes,
off. Like I think the
24
music would be
seconds.
abrupt in the sense like whatever
Pace
the track would be would
27
stop abruptly.
minutes,
And that's how
24
you know
seconds.
he's come up on her.
cool,
That's what I think.
yeah. I know, it's so fucking hot. Ugh. And it's great actually, because then I feel like it totally makes sense. I mean, and again, not to like functional it or whatever, but there's like such a great opportunity then for him to be like, okay, you see that gate, you go there.
Right.
Like-
Right.
Because I just love the
So
idea.
the direction to, and I can do that because these two gates are so close.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like what do you call it? Alice in Wonderland. The door on the left, the door on the right.
Right.
You know, so it kind of can be like she came through that one. All right, now go through the one on the right. You know, and then she goes straight to the apple press.
Yeah. Because I just feel like the more that we can get that stuff in world, like it's just going to be so much better.
Oh yeah, no, that's not a problem. I think that's something I can do. Cause I've done like audio tours for mural arts before.
Oh, cool.
And you know, you kind of have to be mindful of certain things, even though the murals are themselves the landmarks. Like you want to kind of build in other stuff that the people pass, and so there were certain things we had to be mindful of. But like getting it in a natural way, like building scripts around landmarks, like
Yeah.
I think there's an easy way to do that.
And I don't know. I mean, my guess is somebody might meander it. Luckily, this is a dead end, so if they
Yeah,
go
so
down
they would
there,
come back around because yeah, I've tested. I mean, they're not gonna do nothing with that.
Yeah.
I don't think anytime soon. But yeah, and I kind of like this because it brings people back towards the water.
yeah.
And it's a nice little roundabout.
And it
So-
just I remember the first time I came here and I was like, this is so crazy to have this like boardwalk, like
It is
out.
insane. Because they used to have performances out there. People will come and do little things there, and like it's a shame. But high tide, I'm thinking like this must get a little tricky. But yeah, it gets you really super close to the water, and all the sounds and stuff. And so I definitely want like water sounds, and so even like building in, okay, when does the trail come close to the water? Like thinking where ambient water sounds could be built in, even if they're not necessarily engaged with the water or walk,
Yeah.
just so that like it can be mirroring the path. And so, oh, you might hear more sound on the water or whatever it might be, And the only tricky part with the, cause like, okay, so she got 24 hours to be in this place, and it is about her getting off island, off the shore before around sunrise. She got to be back, but I don't know like if it matters about time. I mean, it's all going to be relative, but I felt like sometimes it was a little unavoidable, especially when you're dealing with like a cosmic story, to not talk about time in some way,
I mean, and I think it's okay if you
even if like it's daytime and it's kind of supposed to be nighttime. Like,
because
no-
I do think it's like the story is pulling on people's imagination, and if
Right.
and if somebody's like, it's getting dark, right? They
Yeah.
like I think
Yeah.
it's neat to like invoke somebody's.
Yeah, thinking that, and then when it actually lines up, then it's really cool. For those people where they're actually on the trail around sunset,
Yeah. And if you want, like, we could theoretically, like, if you wanted, we could put a suggestion that
like
says,
best experienced at these times
Yeah.
day or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that would be cool.
like, obviously people are going to do what they want to do,
Yeah.
but if you, if you're
But
like,
just so that it lines up with certain things. But yeah, I would say so.
because like this time of day is just
It's
gorgeous.
great. And then you get like the sunset is amazing. Like it's not too crazy out, no matter what. Like it's not a bad deal. So, yeah, right?
And this might be another, like this could be another spot where maybe we'd want to, I don't know. I mean, we can also test it.
I'm trying to think where is the next one after this?
Is it out here when the?
Yeah, it's like, I think it's pretty much here. But yeah, it might need, because just so that people don't, because that again too is a little bit of time in there.
Yeah.
So that maybe once they've gotten out from the boardwalky area, I could have sworn I marked something saying when they get off the boardwalk area. But I don't know, I could have, because at first I thought I was like having too many gates. How many gates do people have in general? Is it vary? Or?
It's very different. I mean, and I think also we're probably going to add and change them as we do beta testing. So
Right.
the basic rule is that like 20 feet is sort of like the, definitely less than that is no good. The more tree cover there is, the wider they have to be. But I would say like 20 feet is sort of like, you could theoretically place one every 20 feet.
That's a lot, right?
And it
For
is,
some,
yeah, nobody's using that
nobody's
many.
using that many.
But we may find, and it kind of depends on the story. Like some people's stories are much more poetic, and so they're not so linear.
Right.
So it
They're
might,
more like reflective meditations or
yeah.
something.
So it might. So with some of them, we may end up like pacing them out because they're, you know, they're less like go and look at that thing. So we,
Oh, did you see that?
Bow!
Wow, let's see those suckers jumping. Clear, yeah.
But in the larger chunks, right, you might have like the major gate that kicks off a story section. But if you wanted to build in a spot, let's say, I don't know, like say your track is like 4 minutes long and most people will walk it in 5 minutes, but if somebody's
Right.
really slow and they walk it in 10, you'd rather it break in the middle and have the next part trigger a little way, like the halfway point trigger farther
Right.
in. I mean,
Right.
we're going to have to build some of those in so that if somebody, this is less true, I think, on yours because it's harder to get off it, but if somebody leaves a trail in the middle, we have to have a way where the app picks the story back up
Right.
where they left off. So,
Right, in case people detour or whatever. So then, second fence. Oh, so yeah, so end of boardwalk trail. I did have a gate by there. I just called it the end of the boardwalk trail.
okay, cool.
So there, and it was that spot, that little like gate exit was there. And then it was Sankofa Farms,
Yeah.
their sign.
Ugh. It's so amazing, actually. Like the post-apocalyptic vibe is just like perfect.
But these guys are in it, and you know I've interviewed Chris and Ty on the apocalyptic stuff anyway, so I kind of already have footage from them. But Chris, I don't know if you ever heard Chris's voice.
No.
But he got a southern drawl like nobody's business. Like this dude, it would be a great kind of like, you know, and I don't know if he's acted before, but I think he'd be down for it if I kind of pitch it to him.
I mean, I
I like getting the voice of the farm in here. Like,
Yeah.
why not?
And I think, you know, I'm like, I love actually working with like non-professional actors because I feel like they don't sound,
Are you kidding me? Did you see Rabbit Proof Fence or
Yes.
Rail? I mean,
yes.
I was kids. I'm like, whoa,
Amazing.
Oscars all around. because
Amazing.
That was like, them kids were making me just believe 150%.
Oh, and I was so excited to see Christina May on your cast list.
Isn't she? She don't know it
I
yet
was like-
because I work with her all the time, but like, 'cause she did the Agents of Escape stuff with me.
Yeah.
But she was more like a co-director, but she's a great actress too.
Oh,
And I think she'd be great for the Cantina.
I know. As soon as I saw that, I was like, perfect.
Yeah, like she's so cool, and she's down to do anything.
Yeah.
She really is.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, this is the sign. I imagine this will be up here, or whatever kind of signage.
Yeah.
So it would direct them towards this. And I think you were saying that, like, you know, see how we just kind of walk through their business?
Right,
like,
right.
I feel like, you know, as long as people are discreet, but like, this is definitely their working area. And so that just feels no fun. I mean, I don't know how, I mean, like, even though they'd be walking straight through, they could acknowledge the sign, read it, and keep going.
Yeah.
But I don't imagine, like, they would be kind of like being obstructing, you know, their business stuff. But I just wanted to be mindful of,
Yeah.
you know, the hours. And I don't know, maybe at some point they might say, oh, this trail is best done during these hours because it doesn't conflict with their
Right.
work schedule or something. But they're working all the time. And the other thing is, I was thinking that maybe it could be this sign so that instead of them stopping in the area where they work,
Yeah.
it could be this sign because it's kind of more like off the trail to where they could sit here and congregate and reassess their path or think about things before they head out there towards like the final destination.
Well, and how awesome. You've literally got like solitude roads that the
Yeah.
character can travel down.
Yeah, it's
and
like,
she's
what are you
gonna-
gonna do? And this is where she decides where I'm gonna, like, yeah, I'm about to take that trip or I'm not, you know what I mean? And so the idea is that, you know, it's this moment, like, I'm trying to figure out how it's gonna be best visualized through audio, in the sense that, like, the character's up there, she's thinking about what she's gonna do, and I think ultimately, I mean, you know how there's stories, like, almost like in Blade Runner, where you don't know if he was a replicant or was he
Right,
not.
right.
Now, if you hear the director's notes, Ridley Scott swears that yes, he's a machine. But, you know, Harrison Ford
Right.
will
Yeah.
disagree, even with the master. So I think, like, for me, it's about, like, kind of leaving that up to the user.
Yeah.
Because what I'm trying to do is put it into people's minds of, like, you know, and the whole idea of this Chronicles of Asylum is not to be so direct and literal, but this idea of, like, you know, asylum is an important word in terms of safety and migration and displacement for so many people right now, but this idea of, like, what people do in order to survive, you know, if your home place, and in this case the planet, is no longer viable or safe for you to live, like, you know, would you be willing to leave people behind? And sometimes these people have to make split-second decisions in terms of, like, with the clothes on their back and whoever they're going to leave behind. But, like, that's just what they got to do. And that's what Lilikoi has to do. She can't return to the heart. You know, it's quarantine. It's a done deal. Like, and her only chance really of survival, for what she knows, is to take this ride with this dude.
It's such a great, I mean, like, you know, and I don't know, in my heart of hearts, and I feel like all of the stories that are coming in are, like, doing this thing of, like, getting people to think, you know, issues that people maybe, like, have really strong opinions about, but to see them through a narrative space,
Yeah.
like thinking about like being a refugee, like
Yeah.
in the context of a science fiction world. Like, you can just be open in a different way.
Well, yeah, and it means, like, you know, also how you view it, like because the people in the hinterlands are, like, they've basically been exiled, right?
Yeah.
Like, they can't whatever the criteria is, they don't fit the world. They can't live in the heart for whatever reasons, and the idea is that they like the world where they are. Like, it's not so bad for a lot of people. Like, even though they know they've kind of been ostracized, you know, and abandoned for so much, you know, to survive on their own, without electricity, without all these things that are available in the city, you know, they like the life that they've made. And so there is something to be said about, you know, when the exiles actually create a world that is sustainable and is way better than
Right.
what is offered behind, you know, these closed walls of the city that is really just hanging on to the vestiges of
Right.
civilization, which is already pretty much a wrap.
Have you ever, I didn't know about this till I was there just this past winter, Freetown Christiana? It's this anarchist collective inside the city of Copenhagen, and it's like designated legally as its own entity. And, like, a bunch of hippies just decided it was an empty army base, and a bunch of anarchists just, like, moved in there and were like, this is ours. And it had been there so long that the country, like, legally was like, okay, like, you can, like, we're giving Christiana, like, this space.
Oh, and that's the name of the city, or that's the
It's
name of the people?
It's the name of this like
Christiana?
island that
an
they
island.
have occupied in the middle of Copenhagen. It's so crazy.
Yeah, but Scandinavia, like, they be doing things like, or maybe it's Amsterdam, but I remember this one, like, Green Living, like a whole community where everything was eco this and eco that, like a whole city worth of that. And, like, people, look, I'm saying this place,
Yeah.
the United States, man, it's not everything. It's
No.
not the only gig in town. And, like, this world has a lot of places to explore.
But
I
it,
thought maybe if you want to sit in the shade,
yeah, sure.
over here, and I can share some of my notes with you. But yeah, so I imagine that the gate would be this.
Great.